So before we go further, perhaps we should try and distinguish the difference between senior sport and youth sport. What is unique about youth sport which is different to senior sport? What are the similarities?
I would say, from my perspective, I think the main difference is that senior sport is more outcome orientated. The result matters across all levels of participation, so from Sunday league football up to professional. And for me in youth sports, albeit there are many people still focused on the outcome, it should be more about the process. Unfortunately, where there's competition, there will always be an emphasis on the result. But in reality, youth sport is always kind of a learning experience, and we should never lose sight of that fact. So the process is really important, much more than the outcome. Which I think when you get to senior level, it's all about winning, whether it be on a Sunday morning or midweek, 7-a-side, 5-a-side, things like that.
That results-based philosophy versus learning outcomes. What's that like in Mexico, and how does that compare to life back home in Yorkshire, England?
I mean, I've been away from the UK for a while, and I've been lucky in that obviously I've hired coaches who've come out more recently, and I do get a bit disillusioned in Mexico because really that results based outcome exists across all levels, not of sport and ages and abilities here in Mexico. If you're not winning on a Saturday morning, having coached midweek, then the reality is that parents will be unhappy. They don't really understand the theory behind what you're trying to teach them. If you're not lumping the ball forward in football as quickly as possible as you can to get it away from our goal, then you're always going to run the risk of other kids or other teams that are slightly stronger than you taking the ball off of your defenders and scoring goals, and that for that reason you're going to lose. So mistakes for youth players in particular are just massively frowned upon. They're not seen as learning experiences, and the reality is that there's not much patience for the process, which is really for me kind of disheartening when you're kind of trying to promote your philosophy and your methodology in that sense of things. Having people come out and coach for me, I do think that it still exists in the UK as well. I think there's a lot of parents who, yes, they are guided into the FA model where they've got to complete their level 1, and I think beyond that, the youth modules that exist. But is it just a ticking box kind of, I've got to hit that in order to be able to run my son's football team, and then once I've done that, I can implement my own philosophy, which is, again, kind of results-based. I do think there's a change. I do think there's more qualified coaches in the UK right now that are believing in what they're doing. I've seen league structures as well that support that. But unfortunately, there's a lot of things here in Mexico that do not support the process over the outcome philosophy.
How do you change the how do you change a culture like that then? How do you make adaptations? How do you improve things?
I like to think that we set examples. So something that I've done more recently here is I set up my own tournament. Mexico lends itself for that. You don't need to be necessarily affiliated to the Football Federation. So I invited a few clubs that were quite close to where we played to set up our own league or tournament, starting with the youngest age group. So we ended up with, I think, 6 and 7 year olds playing 5v5. That's something that doesn't exist here. They get pushed into 11v11 as soon as possibly can. Absurd, really, when you see 7-year-olds running around a massive pitch trying to get a touch of the ball. So yeah, I did 5v5. I pushed it up to 7v7 when they got slightly older, and then the next step would be 9v9. Unfortunately, the pandemic hit and it kind of put a halt to everything. But I think leading by example, definitely the competition side of things, getting that correct in terms of the tournament, because that's the opportunity that you have for educating the parents. So bringing the parents in to watch the games. I mean, the parents watch training, but they're watching kind of not watching. So when they see their children playing, they get to experience the innovative rules that sometimes you put in, and the theory and philosophy behind why they're playing the competition in which they're doing that. If that was to grow, I think sharing that philosophy across more clubs would be the one way of doing it, and then hopefully getting the opportunity to present that model of competition, and then perhaps receiving higher profile people from the federation to come in and look at your work, both in the training environment and the competitive environment, would go a long way to changing that mentality. But it's definitely hard work. It's not something that you do from one year to the next. And aside from that, you would need collaboration on part of the federation to be able to control what goes on. So you attack it from two sides. You've got top to bottom, and then from what we're doing at the bottom, trying to divulge that information to other coaches and clubs around the area.